Hi, my name is Yasmin. Welcome back to 7 Books, 7 Genres. Today we are tackling crime. The book in question, Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers. I got this from the Goodreads challenge list, I think. Ordered it at my library and it's pretty good. I'm going to pose with it. Do not use that. So this book is about a old lady, she's in her 60s, named Vera Wong. She is a Chinese mother and very much follows a stereotype. And she runs a tea shop in San Francisco with very few customers. And one day she comes downstairs from her tea shop and finds a dead man and decides, I'm gonna solve this thing. Light work. It's a really funny, silly story. If you're interested in reading it, I would definitely recommend. I would say skip to the spoiler-free part here. Oh wait. Trigger warning. This book does cover domestic violence and abuse. Lightly, it's not like a really heavy discussion of it, but it is mentioned, and obviously there is murder. Someone does die, but it's not graphic. So yeah, let's get into it. The book opens and it's immediately whiplash from the last book I just read, because that was a very flowery fantasy novel, and we meet our main character, Vera. Now Vera is ridiculous. My first thoughts upon reading this were this feels a bit like a caricature, but I'm gonna choose to believe the author is Asian and feels that they can use that stereotype, because if not, this does feel a little bit stereotypy. She's texting her son at she has a very rigorous routine. She's texting her son at 4:30 in the morning going, are you awake yet? Are you awake? You don't want to sleep in. You shouldn't sleep in. It's bad for your health. Don't be lazy. And she does her morning walk every morning, and she spends some time setting up the shop, and by 8 a.m. she's been up for hours. Her son doesn't seem to like her very much. He doesn't really respond to her texts ever, and when he does, it's kind of Mum, leave me alone. I'm an adult man with a job. She has one customer at her tea shop. His name is Alex. He's an older Chinese man, and he has a wife, Lily, who appears to be ill in some way. It kind of seems like dementia in this first act, so we get the vibe that she's deteriorating and doesn't really recognize him. Vera puts a lot of effort into making him tea every morning, and she always gives him a little bag to take home as well. This is kind of a scene where we get to see her expertise and her care. She uses traditional Chinese medicine to kind of think about how that person is and what they might need, which I really liked. I thought that was very cute and very thoughtful. And Alex is obviously her one customer, so she shuts shop early for the day because it's kind of hard for her to watch, and it makes her sad that it's not doing as well. We learned that back in China she had a tea shop that was doing very well. She goes to bed. The next morning she comes downstairs and there is a dead man just in the middle of her tea shop. That's where the perspective then switches, which I did not know the perspective in this book was going to switch. I thought that we were going to follow Vera for the whole way, and I think maybe I would have preferred that, but we swap to this woman, Julia, who is the wife of Marshall. Marshall is the man who died and Julia's husband. Marshall, as we learn very quickly in the first chapter, was abusive to her and her, I think she's two-year-old daughter, Emma. The night before he tried to leave her, she's packed up all his stuff. He kind of said that he was making it big and he didn't want to split the profits with her, and she sucked, essentially. And so she's obviously devastated, and we learn she has a lot of kind of inner hatred, a lot of self-directed hatred. She thinks she's a bad mother, she thinks she's not good enough, blah blah blah. She doesn't know what she's going to tell people. She's been very isolated from everyone because of her husband Marshall. The police show up at her house to let them know that Marshall is dead, and she doesn't really know what to think. But Emma, her child, is very, very painfully shy, no doubt due to an abusive dad, and clings to Julia and won't let her go and won't talk to any of the officers and won't do this, won't do that. And while the officers are trying to tell her, your husband's dead, Emma really wants to breastfeed. And Julia's really embarrassed about this. She's like, oh my God, you guys need to go. I'm so sorry. I have to sort this all out. And we get the sense of a lot of shame weighing on this woman. Then we swap, I want to say, back to Vera, and Vera has called the police, let them know there's a dead man, and she's gone as far as to draw a Sharpie outline around the body so the police don't have to do it. And she's so ridiculous. The police are there, they're trying to, you know, identify the body, take pictures, whatever. She's going, do you guys want tea? I made you all tea. It's great for sharpening the mind. Like, you've got to try this tea, guys. And she's cornering them and they're like, no, we're not going to drink the tea. We're not doing that. We meet the main officer, Officer Gray, who's very stereotypically grumpy and doesn't have time for it and no nonsense. And she's saying, Vera, you cannot just draw a Sharpie outline around the body. Like, that's not normal. And we're not drinking your tea. We can't take anything from you. Vera's like, these guys suck. They are so incompetent. They're not even getting fingerprints like I saw on CSI. Okay, I got to do this myself. And we learn at the end of this chapter, she's taken a thumb drive or like a USB from the hand of the dead man. This dead guy had busted through the window of her shop or like broken in and died on the floor there. And she's very suspicious. He had a bruise on one cheek and a scratch on the other. She's like, evidence. And then she takes this thumb drive and hides it from the police, which, why would we do that? I don't know. It's none of my business. Genuinely, whatever. Then this perspective switches again, and we have this guy, Ricky, who is an Indonesian man who shows up at Vera's shop because he feels guilty about what happened to Marshall. Ricky shows up at Vera's shop because he kind of wants to see like what all the fuss is about. And Vera, I think, makes him drink tea, and he pretends he's a BuzzFeed reporter and he's going to do a article on her shop to ask more questions about what she knows about the dead man. We learn from this perspective that he was most likely the one that punched Marshall, and he was really angry about his money. They don't say what it was, but he remembers thinking back to that night and being like, oh my god, I've never been that angry in my life, and this kind of thing. And there was obviously some kind of altercation. Vera knows he's suspicious, but she kind of plays along. Then we meet another lady, Sana, who walks in around the same time, who thinks that maybe she was the one who killed Marshall. We get the sense that she feels really, really guilty and she doesn't know what has happened. Sana was someone who, I think in this first scene, we get the sense she could have possibly been having an affair, or maybe there was some other secret between them. So we're kind of like, what's going on here? Julia also appears kind of looking at the tea shop, but she runs when Vera sees her and goes to talk to her. We don't really know why she did that. I think she just got nervous, and so Vera's like, okay, I've got suspects. Vera calls her son to ask about this flash drive and is like, hey, if I had a flash drive from a dead body, not saying I do, but hypothetically, if I had a flash drive from a dead body, how would I get that? And she's plugged it into her computer, and her son's like, please tell me you haven't plugged it in. Please tell me you haven't got this. And if you did, that you didn't plug it into your personal computer where it could have like insane implications on you, or viruses, or God knows what. And she unplugs it and she's like, no, of course not. It was a hypothetical. So she doesn't call him anymore, but he's like obviously fuming. He's like, why would you do that? You need to go to the police if you have evidence. And she's like, the police are useless. I'm gonna solve this myself. She visits Alex on his way home to drop off some tea, and he looks really distraught, really not well, and she thinks it must be his wife. So she just gives him the tea and moves on with her day. On her way home, she sees who she thinks is Marshall, and she's like, oh, you're dead. And it turns out it's Marshall's twin brother, Oliver, who we then swap to the perspective of. I forgot about this. Oliver is someone who has been chronically abused and mistreated by his brother and his dad. His brother was the favorite and a very nasty, very cartoonishly evil man. Like, he would smoke and blame it on Oliver, and it would always be like, you're so pathetic. But we learn that, okay, this isn't funny, but it's so ridiculous. His mum died because he wanted like shaved ice or something, and the ice machine leaked and she slipped on the water, hit her head on the kitchen counter and died. And it's so silly because they blame him for her slipping and dying because he wanted like shaved ice or whatever it was. I can't remember what it was, but it was something with melted water. And I did burst out laughing at that. I know that it's sad, but what kind of like slip on a banana peel death? Yeah, whatever. We learn he's a people pleaser. He has a lot of shame. He doesn't really say no. He's a doormat. She makes him some tea and he starts crying. I just put, she says some BS. What did she say? Oh, that's why I put it. She tells him some bullshit about the tea. It's not even true. She was like, oh yeah, the golden dragon guards this tea. And he's like, is that true? She goes, no, I just say it so that Americans think it's cool. Like, it's really easy to make up. At this point, she is growing on me because she and I are similar. We have say anything ideas. She will just say anything at any time. He also tells her that Marshall was allergic to a lot. We find out that the death could have maybe been an anaphylactic shock, and he was allergic to things like goose feathers and peanuts and almonds and whatever. This is hilarious. She calls Ricky and Sana both up at 7:30 in the morning. They've given her their number in case any information pops up, because Sana is pretending to be a podcaster and Ricky is pretending to be a reporter for BuzzFeed. She calls them up at 7:30 in the morning and she's like, are you still asleep? Oh my god, you're wasting the day away. You need to get up and get ready and come to my shop and take pictures because you're a reporter, okay, right? And dress nice. And then she's basically set them both up on a date and at the same time is interrogating them as murder suspects because she's suspicious. Yeah, she's just got audacity. If she's got one thing, it's audacity. Ricky denies knowing the victim. She's not fooled. She then makes them go upstairs and load up a load of food. She's cooked all these dishes, side dishes. She's called up Oliver as well and told him, bring your car. And so Oliver's there with his car and she sees the nosy neighbor across the street, Winifred, who they have this ongoing battle because her pastry shop, she sells Chinese pastries, but she calls it a patisserie. And Vera's like, that's stupid, you're not French. Mind you, she's called her tea house Vera Wang's tea house to try and get more customers. So they argue over this a lot. They load up everything into the car and Oliver's like, so where are we going? And she goes, we're going to Julia's house. We're going to the white lady with the child's house. I'm assuming it's his wife. And I looked it up on Google and I know where she lives and we're going there. Okay, private investigator, yeah, let's do it. Oliver's like, we cannot just go to her house. Like, can I at least call her? Because Vera just has this way of just getting what she wants. And so he calls Julia and he's like, hey, I'm going to bring like a couple friends and come visit and check in on you. They go to Julia. While she's in the car, Vera finds a manuscript, Oliver's manuscript, and she's like, oh, this is cool. Where should I put this? And he's like, oh, just leave it where you found it. Don't touch it. And she knows she's going to take it, but she agrees with him. And there's this quote, it's best to nod and agree with what people say before doing what you wanted from the very beginning. I love her. So then we meet Julia again and Emma. Emma immediately takes a liking to Vera and Vera kind of herds her off to the kitchen to help her heat up all the food. She just busts into Julia's house and is like, where are your pans? I need to heat this up. And Julia's like, we get a sense that there's something happening between Julia and Oliver. They love each other a little bit. They used to be best friends. Oliver definitely had the hots for her and she kind of liked him a lot, but Marshall wormed his way in and isolated her and whatnot. Emma was scared of Oliver because she thought it was her dad. And she was relieved to find out that it wasn't her dad, which is upsetting. There's this really sweet scene where Vera brings Emma a custard bun and she squeezes it and the custard goes all over her arm. And Julie is thinking, oh my god, this is such a mess. Marshall's going to be super angry. And Emma's like, oh, try some. And then she remembers that Marshall's not there anymore. And she lets herself enjoy being with her daughter and playing and having fun without having to worry about punishing her. They all eat and the food, oh my god, the way this author describes herbs, food, anything like that that's sensory is really, really good. I love it. There's a feast and they all go into a food coma, right? And Vera was waiting. So she, once they've all sat and they've all eaten and they're full, she's like, okay, so I think one of you is a murderer and I'm going to do analysis and I'm going to figure it out. And they're all like, we don't have to do this right now. And she asks them all their whereabouts and they all say kind of like nothing. And then Sana's like, I actually don't have to tell you this, by the way. And Vera notes it down. And she's like, why are you writing that down? Like, what? And it's just very funny. There's also this really funny scene where Ricky said that he was playing games and she's like, oh, like Clash of Clans? And he's like, how do you know Clash of Clans? And that made me giggle. Although I do think with the amount of references in this book, it is going to date itself. Like, I don't know if it's going to be readable in 10 years' time. Julia admits that Marshall left her and Vera is loving this investigation. She has a column in her notebook that just says, I'm a murderer. And she's going to put things in the I am a murderer column. We find out then the police turn up and the police tell them, well, they tell Julia, but Vera's like eavesdropping on the wall, that Marshall died from bird dander, an allergic reaction to bird dander in his stomach. The police lady's like, Vera, were you eavesdropping? And she goes, yeah. And she's like, oh my god. I'll just tell you then, we found out he died from this. Ricky and Sana kind of bond as they leave. They live in the same area. You get a sense something's gonna happen. We find out Sana's mum is a super rich artist, like she's a writer, and she's encouraged Sana to be an artist herself, but she kind of believes that like artist block is nothing and it's all just mind over matter. And Ricky has family back in Jakarta that he's trying to provide for. We find out Marshall took something from her, but she doesn't specify what. At this point, my best guess was like art or something, or money maybe. It doesn't seem like they were having an affair. She calls Julia and asks her to meet up, and she wants to kind of snoop around Julia's house and look for the thing that was stolen from her. At this point, it could be like the thumb drive, or maybe a painting, or maybe money, I don't know. Vera tries to charm the police officer. She shows up at the station with a load of side dishes. The officer comes in carrying coffee, and she takes it from the officer, and she's like, no, that's bad for your liver. You're gonna die at 30 if you keep drinking that. Throws it away. Gives her tea instead. And is like, here's all this food. All of the other officers are coming in, eating the food. It looks delicious. And then she kicks them all out. She's like, okay, go. I need to interview this lady. And she kind of says to the officer that you need to solve this thing, it was a murder. And the officer's like, that's not even true. Can you just calm down? Can you just be chill? And kind of kicks her out and says like, I need you to mind your business and just stay put. She kind of feels bad about the flash drive because she's like, maybe if I didn't take it, they would have known that something was like afoot. Then we find out from Oliver, he goes to clear out an apartment full of stuff that Marshall had. Julia calls him, says Marshall had a second apartment that I've just found out about. Like, a estate agent called me and said we need to clear out the stuff. So Oliver goes to clear out the stuff, and it's a load of art which is presumably stolen. It's really cool, like varied artistic pieces. He brings it all back to Julia. Julia, we find out, loves making cheese boards. She can't cook, but she loves a cheese board. She makes one for Oliver. He tells her about all the artwork. She has to go breastfeed Emma. And while she goes to breastfeed Emma, Oliver's like, oh, hey, I got her a few bits for her room. Do you mind if, like, I go in and set that up while you do that? She says, yeah, sure. And he set her up a little teepee in a cozy corner and all of this so she can hide if she's feeling anxious. It's a sweet little moment. We find out Marshall stole Sana's art for NFTs. So he would scam them into giving up all of their rights and ownership over the art to him. He would take college students who weren't very like secure in themselves, and he would scam them out of their artwork. I like to commentary here about how artists all simultaneously think they're really, really great, but are also super scared that people are going to find them out as a fraud. I thought that was funny and accurate as someone who makes art. She nearly gets caught trying to look for this painting, and she just decides she has to leave. She can't deal with it. Vera calls everyone and says that her shop is trashed. Someone has broken back in. She knows they're probably looking for the flash drive. I don't think that she tells anyone this. And she's obviously kind of like, I don't really feel safe in my shop. I'll have to go stay with my son. I hope I don't inconvenience him. And Julia's like, oh, why don't you just stay with us? Like, it's okay, it's fine. It's no big deal. So Vera moves in with them, and she kind of starts up a routine, helping Emma, doing some of the housework, and it's very sweet. Then they offer to fix up the shop using all their skills. It's very cute. Vera, I don't think, knows about this just quite yet, but it's still nice that they're all going to kind of help. Then we see that Julia takes really good photos. She wanted to be a photographer before she dropped out of college to move with Marshall. He kind of convinced her it wasn't a good idea. But Vera here is saying, well, you're good. Why not go do that? You like doing that. Go do that. And she tells her that she'll look after Emma. She'll take care of her if she wants to work. So Julia starts working as a photographer. Then her son is kind of worried about her. Is a flip in their dynamic. Before, he used to just message her occasionally and not really respond to what she was saying. And now she's been so busy that she hasn't been responding. And he's like, are you alive? Is everything okay? I've heard about the, like what's happening. And he's kind of concerned, which is nice. We get a sense he does actually care. She's been reading Oliver's manuscript. Vera's been reading it. And it's funny. She's been just treating it like a nighttime reading and not like this really personal thing from this guy. It's kind of like a biography, but it's not. And she feels like she's really settling in with Julia, and Julia's like her daughter. Then Vera goes snooping in the garage, and she finds a laptop that uses a flash drive to open. So she puts in the flash drive. Mind you, she has kept this flash drive on her the whole time. She's wearing a fanny pack, and she just has it under her shirt all day, every day. So she unlocks it with the USB. There's a folder labeled assets, And in this, we find out she sees something and then this perspective switches. But we know she probably has seen Sana's name because there are lots of different artist names. Oliver, Ricky, and Sana are all working together. They're clearing up Vera's shop. Officer Gray walks in and is like, what the hell are you guys doing here? And why has no one reported this massive burglary to me? So she's very suspicious. They're all kind of like, yeah, actually, why didn't we report that? But each of them feel that they would look suspicious regarding Marshall's death, so they wanted to keep the police out as much as possible. Vera then calls Sana and she tells her she knows the truth and she tells Sana to meet her. This was so funny. The way when she found out it was bird dander, we had this page where she's theorizing. Her theories are like, maybe he kicked a pigeon and it killed him. Maybe there was a big bird. And we're like, okay. But she calls Sana and she says to her, just tell me, you kill Marshall? Is it you? You give him pigeon? I think it was Sherlock that said that. Sana basically breaks down, tells Vera her life story about how she's a tortured artist and Marshall took advantage of her, stole the rights to her work. She was super angry, rented out a studio near him just to keep an eye on him to try and fix this artist block. She's had this really, really bad artist block since she met him and was hoping being near him could kind of undo it because her mum was not empathetic about her struggling. She sees him, he confronts her, he calls her a crazy bitch, says he's being stalked and harassed and that he's going to report her to the police. She kind of gets angry and scratches him and runs away. She's so embarrassed, she's so ashamed. So we know she didn't kill him, but that's where he got the scratches from. Julia is working, she's doing a photo shoot, and she sees kind of a figure watching her in the distance, who's probably the murderer or the person who robbed Vera. We get a scene, and this is just me nitpicking, but there's a scene of her singing to Taylor Swift in the car. She hasn't done it in forever because Marshall used to tell her she sounded like a wolf howling and she wasn't very good. And I do understand that we are trying to represent, in a way, how much of yourself you lose in an abusive relationship. And trust me, I get it. But this idea that she would never ever sing again, even in the car on her own, I think is a little bit clunky and a little bit overdone and kind of on the nose. I think there are more nuanced ways to explain it, but it's fine. It's okay. Then she comes home, Vera confesses on Sana's behalf and says like, this is what happened, but she didn't kill him, but this is the truth. She's brought Sana back to the house to do it, but then just won't let her speak. There was a quote in this section that I really liked that said, for years she's learned to only see the good side of Marshall, to believe him when he tells her he wants nothing but the best for them. And after Emma arrived, he'd say things like it's only the three of them against the whole world. But now it hits her. Why against the whole world? Nobody should be against the entire world. Not unless you're someone like Marshall, who goes through life by cheating and swindling everyone he comes across. I liked that. That was cute. There was a bit here that I didn't love the wording of, though, immediately after. How had she let him tear her down like that, piece by minuscule piece? Such tiny pieces of her that she hadn't realized they were being taken away from her until she was left suddenly hollow. That was a little bit wordy and kind of nonsensical. If someone tears off pieces of you, you're not going to be hollow. They're not tearing from the inside. So it was a bit like, it felt like you were just saying anything, but that's such a minor critique. It just annoyed me a bit. Vera rules out Sana. She then questions Ricky about the scalping bot that he made. And it did make me giggle that he called it scalping bot. Like me when I make a movie pirater and I call it movie pirater illegal. Okay, like maybe he would have done that. Maybe he might have done that, but it just made me giggle a bit. And he's thinking, well, it's okay, she doesn't know what that is. And she goes, well, I didn't know what it was, but then I went on Google and it's bad. And he's like, fuck. Shit. Bitch. Yes, I'm getting really rich. She's on to me. Like, it just made me giggle. We find out Ricky made the bot for 25k. He saw an ad. He needs to send money to his brother, who is very, very gifted, so that he can get better education and move to the US. He tells Vera that he made this bot. He knew it was a bit dodgy, but he was hoping he could just get the money and not think about it. And Marshall only sent him $1,000 instead of the 25 and said, anyone can make a bot. You're lucky I'm even paying you this. And if you tell anyone, then you'll be exposed for doing something illegal. So that's why Ricky went up to him at dinner one night and punched him the night he died. So we know he's also innocent. She tells Ricky not to be ridiculous. Obviously he didn't kill the guy or concuss him. He's not strong enough. And she grabs his bicep and is like, look, you need more muscle to do that. Awkward. Then she says to him, she's like, well, now I know you're not a murderer. Then you and Sana can go out. And he's like, what? And she's like, yeah, I give you my blessing. Don't worry. And then they do go out. They go on a date. She invites them all to a picnic. She gives Sana a bamboo pole and she says, go draw in the sand. get over your artist block. It's not permanent. You can erase anything in the sand. Just go draw. And Sana does, and she kind of feels really like rejuvenated, which is cute. Oliver has been fixing the lights and the plumbing. Sana paints the walls, and Julia suggests that they visit the dad of Marshall and Oliver. They bring him groceries and pastries, and they drop them off, and they try and buzz in, and the dad is like, go away, I don't want to talk to you. Julia's like, okay, well, we're here, we're just going to drop them off, let me know if you need anything. And the dad just says, don't come back here again. And we're like, that's suspicious. What's that about? At this point, I have theories, okay? And I was like, yeah, the dad probably killed Marshall, because I don't think that the author at this point, she's tried to make them all so likable. There's never really any stakes. You don't think like, oh, one of them did it and one of them's evil. You think, well, there's probably an explanation. I think it's because you get that inner monologue that you know what's happening before it actually comes to light. And I think that if we would have followed Vera as she was finding out the information, it would have been more of a mystery, but it's okay. It's still a fun read. Sana sees the creepy stranger that Julia saw earlier. She goes on her date with Ricky. They kiss. It's very sweet. Ricky feels bad because he's made the bot that's scalped Sana's art, even though Sana did sign her art away legally. So I'm not really sure the logistics of that. But it's none of my business. I don't care. Julia hears ominous creaking in her house, and she's like, ooh. She's really scared, but she sees nothing. And she goes around and finds Vera's window wide open. I think Vera and Emma are out at this point, and she sees Vera's been reading Oliver's manuscript, so she picks it up and she flicks through, and she sees that it's basically fan fiction about him and her, and she's like disgusted. She's thinking, oh, so this guy is trying to worm his way in and replace my brother, and he's fantasizing about being my daughter's dad. She thinks that he killed Marshall because at the end of the book, one twin strangles the other, and she thinks, well, maybe he was hinting at something. So she's fuming. Then Officer Gray knocks on her door, and she's like, fuck, I'm holding this manuscript. And for some reason, instead of just putting it down on a counter or something, or running back upstairs, she hides it under a cushion, which is maybe the most suspicious thing you could ever do, ever. And Officer Gray sits her down and says, I just wanted to let you know you've actually got a really good life insurance payout, because Julia made them both take out life insurance. Once Emma was born, she got hit with a wave of, oh my god, we need to look after her. She looks towards where the manuscript is, and Officer Gray obviously catches that and is saying, you know, you seem very suspicious. Your husband, you had all his stuff packed up before you found out he was dead, and now you're getting a big life insurance payout. And Julia's like, fuck. Nah, that's not me. I didn't do it. I didn't. And then she looks towards the manuscript. Officer Gray sees this, grabs it, and goes, what's this? I think I'll take this home to do a bit of light reading, which I'm not sure that that's legal. I don't think you can just take stuff from people's house. If you're a police officer, I think you need a warrant. So I think she just committed a crime. Not sure, but she did. And Julia's like, shit, this is going to implicate Oliver in the murder. Then she talks to Vera about it and tells her that Oliver is a very strong suspect and she's nervous. And Vera's like, okay, we're going to get to the bottom of this and we're going to do it at a fancy dinner. I'm going to figure it out. So she invites everyone to a fancy dinner. We swap to Oliver's perspective. He's getting ready for said fancy dinner, and the police come and arrest him. They think he's a suspect, but they're like, you're not technically arrested, it's just a chat, we can just chat. And then she starts interrogating him about like the book and what it meant and how he wants to kill Marshall and all of this. And Oliver's like, wait, this is just a chat, right? And she's like, yeah. He's like, well, I'm leaving. And he leaves. He doesn't want to talk about it. He goes to the dinner. He's furious. He thinks Vera gave his manuscript to the police. He shows up. They've all been eating and he is angry. He's like, Vera, how could you do this to me? And this is the point in the book where everything blows up. The truth comes out, basically. Julia says, I found it and I had no idea you were writing fanfic about me and it's disgusting and you've come into my life to try and take it over again. It's so weird. Sana finds out that Ricky made the bot. Ricky's angry at someone, probably. I don't know. It felt like a little bit contrived, like they had to all argue so that we could have a nice resolution. Oliver admits that he planted drugs on Marshall's body. I forgot to say that he was found with MDMA. He planted the drugs in his bag and didn't want to call the police, but he was gonna to kind of get revenge, but then he didn't, and that was it. That was all he did. Then Julia's angry at Vera because Vera admits that she didn't even really get her shop trashed. She trashed the shop herself because someone had been looking around and no one would take it seriously if she just said a few things had moved. So she smashed up the place and kind of lied. She also says that his laptop and the thumb drive had been stolen, which I feel like she would have put the laptop somewhere safer, and didn't she always keep the thumb drive on her? I don't know. Julia ends up kicking Vera out and says, I think you should leave. Vera goes back to her shop and she falls into this kind of like slump, like she doesn't get out of bed. Ricky had been fixing her furniture in the parking lot outside of his apartment, and the landlord calls him and says, you cannot leave all this shit out there, you need to go move it back. So he goes to Vera's shop, sees that the front door is wide open but no one's in there, and sees a neighbor, Winifred, and she says, yeah, no one's come in or out of the shop in 3 days. I heard her come back late at night, but like I have no idea what's up with that. It hasn't been open, but the front door's unlocked. So Ricky's worried. So he runs upstairs and he finds Vera like under the sheets, and he thinks she might be dead, but she's just really, really dehydrated. So she goes to hospital, and while they're all at hospital, they kind of reconcile and they realize how much they love each other and they love her, and it's very sweet. Then now they're all friends again. They're trying to figure out what the hell is going on and who killed Marshall then, if none of them did it. Tilly offers to represent, Tilly is her son, by the way, I don't know if I said that. Her son Tilly offers to represent Oliver pro bono. He's a lawyer. When he hears about all this, he comes to the hospital, he's like, oh my god, I had no idea. And they kind of lecture him about being nicer to his mother, which is quite funny, because throughout the course of the book he has been kind of mean. He's like, oh, are you finally closing the shop? Thank god. Thank god, that's such a good idea, you're so right. And she hasn't said anything, and she's like, oh. Ugh. There's a really funny scene with this lady Gladys who's next to Vera in the hospital, and she's like, Gladys, you're a pain in my ass, but you should come to the tea shop. And Gladys is like, oh no, all those foreign herbs they'd probably destroy my liver. I don't know if I could deal with how exotic they are. And Vera's like, can you just shut up and come drink tea? And she said that she wanted Sana to bring cocaine to see what Gladys would do. And I thought that was really funny. She sees the tea house that's been fixed up. Sana painted this beautiful, beautiful mural, and they celebrate, and she's like, okay, I'm gonna make you guys some tea. And she saves the really expensive stuff for them. And this is called bird's nest tea. It's very expensive. And then she has this kind of eureka moment where she figures out the bird's nest tea was what killed Marshall. That's how the bird dander got into his stomach. Who was her one customer at the tea shop? Alex. They go to Alex's apartment and she says, I know about the bird's nest. You need to let me in. And he lets them in and he confesses he is Marshall's dad. His wife is dead. He didn't have the heart to tell Vera. And Marshall and him went out for dinner one day. Then Ricky came and punched him in the face and he said, what the hell is going on? Marshall lets it slip that he's leaving Julia. He doesn't care. They're weighing him down. And Alex is obviously very upset by this. He's like, no, you need to provide for your wife. And he's very disgusted by the person his son has become. He kind of has this moment. He looks through Marshall's phone while he's in the bathroom, sees all these suspicious texts, and he just has this moment of, wow, this guy sucks. They go back to his. He says to Marshall, do you want some tea? And, you know, please rethink this. Please rethink what you're doing with your life. This isn't it. And Marshall doesn't care. He's like, well, just because you don't want me to end up pathetic like you know, you've done nothing for yourself since mom died, blah, blah, blah. He says all this horrible stuff. And so Alex gives him the bird's nest tea and kind of just watches him have an allergic reaction. And that's why Marshall runs out. He's holding the thumb drive. He's trying to get to the tea shop to make it known that something suspicious has happened. I know why he wouldn't try and get to a hospital, but whatever. The book kind of ends with Alex confessing, going to jail. Vera moves in with Julia. Sana and Ricky start returning the stolen art together, and kind of everyone claps. It's very nice. I did like that Julia and Oliver stay friends. They're good, but they're just best friends again. They didn't have a romantic ending, which I like more. I thought that was a good touch. Yeah, I think that's everything. So it was overall a super quick and easy read. Although there wasn't a lot of tension, it was still a lot of fun. I'm going to move on to the spoiler-free bit here. So my overall thoughts, I think that this book was a lot of fun. It was very silly. The characters were all very charming, very cute, if a little bit stereotypy, but that's usually the case when you have an ensemble cast. I loved the humor, especially Vera. She was so ridiculous. I loved her just straight audacity. I did, however, feel that the book is going to age itself because it made so many references to things like Clash of Clans and HBO and Little Black Dress. So while it's funny now, I'm not sure if it would still be funny 10 years down the line, for example. I think that the book would have had much more tension if we followed Vera as she was figuring things out. I think we still could have had a funny and engaging and charming book with a little bit more suspense, because this book, to clarify, is a crime. That's what it is classed as. And I didn't feel for 1 second that this was like tense, or that we weren't going to figure out, or even that certain characters were guilty. Like, they were quite obviously red herrings, some of them. I think that It was a very easy read, a very quick read. The voice is very comical and kind of simple, I want to say, which isn't an insult. It just really depends what you want to read. If you're looking for a book you can just pick up, read the whole thing, have a great time doing it, then absolutely love, love, love. If you're looking for something that is a more stereotypical crime novel, do not pick this up. It's going to annoy you. But yeah, I did think that it was good, although some things were wrapped up a bit too neatly, I think. But I have found with ensemble books, like where there are so many characters, they try and give everyone a very neat storyline, and it just means that certain things aren't paced maybe as realistically. Like characters getting over things way quicker than a person would in real life. But overall, really good read, very easy beach read if that's something you're interested in, and I had a lot of fun reading this. It was a welcome break. Next up in the series, I'm going to read a historical fiction, and I'm going to read The Woman in the Wallpaper. This is a book about Paris 1789, and I don't usually read historical fiction, but it's going to be good, I think. It's kind of mysterious, a little bit mystical, but mostly historical, and we're going to give it a go. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed hearing my review, and I'll see you in the next one.